The views and opinions expressed in this podcast by the host or the guest do not necessarily reflect the views of Paranormal Buzz Radio or its sponsors. Use of any material produced by Paranormal Buzz Radio without express written consent is strictly prohibited. For information on everything Paranormal Buzz Radio has to offer, visit our website, paranormalbuzzradio.com. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to the Shadows and Stardust Podcast. I am your host, Andrea Jane, and today I have a very special guest here with us. Her name is Anna Wilson, and she is the owner and founder and mastermind behind Hillside Paranormal. Please welcome my good friend Anna. How are you tonight?
I'm pretty good, Andrea. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How is it out there in Hillsdale, Michigan?
Really, really humid. It has been so hot and humid, but it's been great. My husband and I were just talking, the corn is like freakishly tall everywhere. It's been really hot, but really nice.
You say corn?
Yeah, the corn. We were just talking about that the corn is like freakishly tall this year.
Oh, nice. We just got some corn today.
Oh, cool.
And today we have a topic of discussion that both Anna and I are really into. And it's called sliding or sliders. Streetlight interference is what sliders stands for. It's a phenomenon. And it's in regards to people who are considered electric people and interfere with electronics. So today, Anna and I are going to discuss sliding and whether or not it's really a paranormal phenomena or if it's something that can be more normally explained. So off the top, what do you think? Do you think it's paranormal to slide?
To an extent, like over the course of history, like the paranormal has always kind of been what we can't explain. So like, I think at some point we will learn what that is. And honestly, I think it's really a mix of both because that energy works as a mix of both. But
yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that actually does make sense because it is kind of unexplained. It could qualify as paranormal, but let's talk about it from, I guess, in a way where somebody who might not know what it is. How would you describe it?
Electric people, like you said, just be like, if you're the person where radios either don't work or work extra well when you're near it, is a way to tell. I used to have a job where the only way the radio would work is when I stood underneath it because it was like in between the doorways. And you just kind of notice things like that. Like I zap people a lot more and I get shocked a lot more.
So I think one of the... Oh, go ahead.
No, what did you say? I'm sorry.
I was going to say one of the main things that the internet likes to talk about, and that's why it's named slider, right? Streetlight interference. I guess there's a woman named Hillary Evans who wrote a book that I didn't read. Did you read it?
No, I have not read that.
Yeah, I didn't know it existed until tonight, apparently. I'm interested in reading it. I'm going to have to go find it. But it based upon the streetlight interference part where people reported essentially streetlights going out when they walk by them.
Yeah, there was one that always did that. Like when I was a teenager on the way to walk into my friend's house, it would go either on or off when I went by.
Right. And I experienced that too. And I remember people when I was younger would say, oh, no, they go off when you're not there. But they didn't. They were always on. They came on at like 7 p.m. and they were on until, dusk to dawn. So that didn't make sense. And it looks like as far as a lot of the articles published and different things that they're really focused on that. Like, I just thought that was interesting, because there's like so much more than that. I have experienced myself and other people, like just affecting all types of electronics, like the phone. The printer is the worst. Like, do you own a printer?
I do, and I can't get it to work.
No. Do you own a working printer? If the answer is no, then chances are you're sliding.
No, I don't.
I can't keep a printer in my house. Like, it's like a race between what's going to happen first. Is it going to break or the ink runs out? And chances are it just breaks first. I don't know what it is with printers, but they're wicked sensitive.
I believe it. That's interesting. I've always done car alternators myself. And I really think, like you said, on the internet, everybody's obsessed with the streetlight phenomenon. And I think one of the reasons that's the most like visible, confirmable evidence you could really kind of say is like, oh crap, that streetlight always turns off when I go by. That is such visible evidence. Whereas like saying I killed every car alternator that I've ever had, every car that I've ever had also like dies when I own it. So it could just be whatever.
So here's a couple of things that I thought was interesting. And I did have that happen too. I've had alternator problems, electrical issues, not consistent, but
yeah,
still beyond a coincidence. So there are a couple of different categories of sliding. I don't know if you knew about this. So the idea of
maybe go ahead.
Yeah, the idea of interfering with the streetlight would be considered being like a static, when you like interfere something and that's like breaking stuff, like light goes out, break your camera type deal. And then there's just like all these different categories I've read. I can't find the article and I didn't write it down or anything, but I mean, there was like 6 different levels of sliding and it goes all the way up to high voltage. And there's actually an actual syndrome. It's called high voltage syndrome. Have you ever heard of that?
I have not. That's fascinating.
I'm pretty sure if I got to take any title, it probably would have been that. And that is past tense. And I can get into why later, but I thought that was really interesting. I also have had...
You killed an MRI machine once, didn't you?
So yes, actually I have. So I had a traumatic brain injury from a car accident when I was 8 years old, which brought me to Boston, and I was continuously getting scanned. And I remember it was fucking terrifying, okay? I was like 8, 9 years old in Boston Children's getting all these crazy tests done because I had whiplash and a nerve damage in my neck from the car accident. It was a bad accident. We were the first car hit in a 10-car pileup coming off of Route 1 onto Route 16 in Revere. And if anybody's from that area, be like, oh, yeah, Mr. Tux is gone, but it was right in front of there. And I'm kind of glad Mr. Tux is gone. But anyways, so I went into the MRI machine, and they kept taking me out and putting me back in and taking me out. And I was freaking out, obviously. I didn't want to be there. And I remember they took out, and they were like, well, we're going to have to reschedule you. And I went back for the MRI, and I remember them saying, thank you. We got a brand new machine. I literally broke the machine.
That's awesome.
It was probably on its way out, but that's what they said. And of course, I wouldn't have like thought of this then. I wouldn't have known. But I've had some pretty interesting. I've had some pretty interesting experiences. But I also had a very traumatic experience as well. And I don't know if you have. I have a lot of people mentioned it, that have the effect of the slider effect. And the thing that a lot of people can confirm is that they had a near-death experience.
Yeah, I've heard that. And honestly, like, maybe there have been times where I was like, oh crap, like I should have died. Like, not necessarily injuries and things like that, but there were times where it was like, oh my gosh, how did I not just die? You know? And I don't know if I've ever had a near-death experience. I've been shocked a couple of times, and I think that kind of helps spike it up too.
Right.
But yeah, and I also have a friend who he had heart problems a few years ago, and he died like several times. And he's like, yeah, he is not an electric person at all. So
Interesting. I know I've had a couple of large group conversations about sliding, and one of the main things that I get are two things. One, near-death experiences with medical intervention, whether it be, getting paddled or whatever it was, which is electric. I mean, we're talking about electricity.
mm-hmm.
We as human beings have electricity in our bodies. Our heart is our electrical board. So the other part is the heart. A lot of people that report incidences of sliding have irregular heartbeats, extra accessories. It's essentially an extra accessory. If you think of wires, it's like having an extra wire that's a dead end, which isn't the best thing, especially if you ever get zapped good enough. It can put you in a cardiac arrest. They also have heart murmurs. Again, cardiac complaints and just like different things is what is like the majority. So I think on the normal end of sliding or being an electric person or even high voltage syndrome, candidate is that we as human beings are just holding more energy, vibrating at a higher frequency. And that's pretty much what I think.
I believe that vibrating at a higher frequency, the more we understand about the world and ourselves, the more we're able to really kind of like ascend and recognize those things with and work on that too.
Yeah.
That's the thing about most sliders is like, oh, I know they know that they do these kinds of things. They pay attention to these kind of things. They wonder about it,
Yeah. And then the other thing that is a pretty evident reaction or cause and effect, rather, is that people with this energy get the effect of breaking electronics or their phone or just anything when they're at a heightened emotional state.
Yeah, that's me. Sorry, that was a door behind me, that
That's
loud
okay.
bang. Yeah, that's me. Especially when it was before LED light bulbs and stuff, and there's still like actual filaments in light bulbs. If I was upset, I couldn't turn the lights on because they would just blow. I can cause and have caused our PlayStation to spaz out multiple occasions, like trying to operate it when I was like upset or whatever.
I would get wireless controllers, forget about it. It doesn't even exist in my life. I stopped playing video games. That just didn't work.
I get too stressed playing video games anyways. Like I get too excited and then I die. So
Same. I can't like watch TV and sit there for too long. Like I've just never been into it. But people think it's kind of crazy for me to say something like this, but it's legit and I'm not mad about it either, but like electronics stress me out. Like I don't like sitting around a TV for too long. I don't like being on my phone, It's
oh yeah.
it's like
They get tiny anxiety boxes in our hands all the time that we're on way too much.
and they're emitting radiation, which doesn't help.
Yeah. Yeah. I will admit I do love the TV. I don't necessarily, the TV is on all the time, whether or not I'm watching it or not. I crochet, so I do have the TV going and I watch videos or listen to videos a lot.
Yeah.
But as someone who spent like probably 85% of her time reading when I grew up, the TV was just kind of like an easy transition to where I couldn't sit down and read all the time. And lately they've been making so many good shows out of like my favorite books that I don't need to read.
Yeah. No, I get it. I mean, I've been in situations where I was kind of laid up and I had nothing else to do, and I've gotten kind of into some shows and everything, but I still, it's hard. It's like imagine like not having any phone, computer, TV, or anything. Like, actually, I can imagine that, and I try to do that as much as possible, but like it's still a necessity. We still, unless if you still got a dinosaur line in your home, a landline, like you still need to have this stuff. But um, I haven't really haven't killed a lot of electronics recently. And when I say that, it was in the last 5 years. And this is something I haven't figured out yet for myself because, like, if it's a fact that a high frequency person is going to have these reactions, you know, and I stopped having them as much, I don't feel as though my frequency has really been the reason. But I did have a serious like medical incident, and I went into shock multiple times, and they shocked me, and I also lost. And it's a lot of blood, all my blood, 8 liters of blood. And after
Wow.
that, I always thought about it. And I'm like, does your blood carry metals? Yes, right. We all unfortunately are exposed to metals, and I didn't like, I don't know, I couldn't really figure it out. But after everything like that happened, like all of a sudden I stopped getting shocked when I plug things in. Now, let me tell you the relevance of this. You might be like, oh, yeah, really? No, really, like I couldn't plug in a vacuum without getting shocked. And I've been electrocuted and thrown across the room from plugging in a vacuum.
Yes. Wow.
Car batteries. Oh my God, forget it.
And I wonder, like, after all of that happened and stuff too, like, you were really kind of focusing on taking care of yourself, taking care of your family, healing from that, and really kind of paying attention to the internals. Do you think maybe it was a way your body has learned a way to use that energy and dispel that energy in a safer method than blowing you across the room? Because
maybe the other thing I actually just realized with you just bringing that up is that after all that happened, I wasn't like around electricity like that. Like I wasn't able to work, and I wasn't able to touch like, electricity. I wasn't doing stuff. I couldn't. I was literally like bedridden, and I wasn't interacting with electricity as much. I didn't even think of that.
Yeah.
Like a lot, big difference, because I was doing hair, and I was doing a lot of hair. Like, and that's all hair dryers. All the tools are plugged into the wall.
Yeah.
That's weird. I didn't even think of that.
Maybe you just need to charge up again, to be honest. Like how a battery gets a little like cold and sluggish and it just needs to charge up to get it.
Oh, no, I'm good. No, I'm all set. I'm good. I actually like not being electrocuted.
Right. Like
don't charge me up.
Meaning to study that effect, but I really don't want to get tased. I mean,
oh no.
Yeah. Well, more than I like actually getting tased.
Well, if you haven't been to a cardiologist, not just you, anybody listening, if you're listening and you're like, yes, I do all this, like you break electronics, and being tased is actually really, really dangerous for somebody who has an extra accessory. So it's an additional pathway in your heart, And if you have that, it's really important to know, because if you were ever in a situation where you could get tased or a big electrical shock, you definitely want to let them know that, because it can kill you instantly. It can literally cardiac arrest, like done, like you're toast. So it's really good to know. And if you're sliding, if you're a slider, if you consider yourself high voltage, I would definitely, I'm not a medical expert. I just, speaking from experience, make sure that I've never been tased. Not that type of experience, but just know that it can be very, very dangerous. This isn't such an uncommon thing. I think it's just an uncommon thing for people to talk about, because
it's one of those subjects that verges on the paranormal subject, and people are going to look at you like you're kind of, that crazy person talking about ghosts over there,
Right. Until they walk by Stacy in the office and they realize, oh, well, wow, every time like that person's near the printer, it doesn't print, and it's too much of a common occurrence to be considered a coincidence. Then you know what I mean. It's really to me, it's more of a normalcy than a paranormal thing. Although I will say that paranormal activity can amplify this for sure, in my experience.
Oh, I would imagine so, just because there's so much energy. They're using energy. They create their own energy in a way too. Like, they'd be trying to get anything they could, just screwing up the electricity in the air. That makes so much sense. And I just
Right.
think some of the theories behind poltergeist activity, that it's psychokinetic energy that is creating this entity that is running havoc through your house.
Yeah, like that's part of what they're discussing on the internet too, is it normal, or is it like a psychic or psychokinetic phenomena? And in that case, I guess, like you said in the beginning, it is potentially both, because I think the other thing that a lot of people might not know or realize is, if you have paranormal activity, which I would consider energy, and again, everything's energy for the most part here. So, and you've got something that's negative, and then you're negative, it's going to feed off of your negative energy, and now it's just going to amplify that, and then it's going to make you feel worse. And then, of course, now you're at a heightened emotion, and then shit starts going haywire.
Yeah, that's what they
And
want. Yeah.
yeah,
Gosh, it's so fascinating. Yeah, it's
yeah,
so. Yeah, like, I am thankful actually for LED light bulbs, because now I can use the lights and not worry about blowing them all the time. It is very helpful.
so I don't know the difference that you, well, I guess, are fluorescent. So, okay, if you work in an office, listen up. If you work in an office, listen up. If you work in fluorescent lights, like I spent my 20s in car dealerships, I cannot tell you what it's like to sit under fluorescent lights and be a slider. It was always buzzing. It was always flashing. And the guy that had to come change that friggin' light would look at me and be like, you know, you're doing this. Because it's just your fucking light in this whole entire dealership that continues to do this every 30 days. They changed out everything. I could tell you all the parts of the light 5 years ago. Like, legitimately. If you work in an office and you feel that, there's a good chance that you're part of this phenomena.
Trying to think. I think one of the lights above me in my office does buzz. Our maintenance guy's been switching them all out for LED lights, so they won't do that.
So that's what I'm thinking. I'm like, I could swear those fluorescent lights had to be LEDs. I don't know. This one particular showroom that I'm thinking of is like a little old school, so maybe it wasn't. But
The LED lights are really kind of newer within maybe the last 5-6 years that they've really been switching to those.
so, have you ever noticed any pixelating on your phones, like blue specks or like black specks on your phones, like the screen started going?
No.
Oh, just me. 2016 and 17. That was right before my said medical incident that kind of like nipped this in the butt for me. I couldn't like keep a phone without pixelating it, and it was where my thumb would sit when I was like holding it or whatever. It was the weirdest thing. I did
It's
it to
interesting.
like 3 phones. That was a different one. That one I had me a little confused.
Yeah, like I know the batteries on mine always go bad. Like they won't turn on because they can't charge anymore. And I had one where the battery like swelled up really big and was really weird. Like I was
Oh
afraid it
yeah,
was.
that sounds like a recall. I don't think you did that.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. I got a new phone right after
Yeah,
that.
I'm glad you did. Sounds like it was about to blow up. Huh.
Yeah.
What about watches? How many watches do you own?
I've gotten rid of them all. Um, the most luck I've had is I got like this weird generic brand smartwatch off of Amazon that I paid like I don't know $75 for, and that one hasn't died yet, but it does have at times like my husband has one too, and his doesn't. Is mine has connectivity issues all of the time.
Yeah,
You can feel
I
mine get
yours get what?
it gets a little bit warm. Like you can just feel like
Oh,
you can just feel like it's almost like buzzing on my arm is what it feels like, I guess. Um,
yeah. I
yeah,
never tried. I never bothered with the watches because my partner would make a comment that if I went near them with their watch on, it would die. And
oh,
this particular partner needed the watch for his job, so um, I guess he's doing better off now, not around me. But I have never even bothered trying to own a watch. It's really interesting. You know, you can discharge this. I don't know if you've ever tried this, but if you're getting shocked a lot, so if you're just like, just having some static or just knowing that, you can't touch outlets today and maybe you're just heightened emotionally or whatever, you can like discharge yourself and your energy, like touch a doorknob before like a metal doorknob before like trying to plug something in, and it helps so you don't like get shocked. I don't know if you knew that.
I think a little bit, yeah. And I've always kind of been of the opinion eventually you'll be able to like you can control it. I swear. Like I made myself it's a static electricity detector. Um and what it is, it's like from the Victorian area, is it's a jar and then you have like a cork with a copper wire that runs through it and it sticks in the jar and hanging inside the jar off of the copper wire are 2 pieces of tinfoil and there's a coil of copper wire above the jar. And when static electricity goes near the copper coil, it travels down the coil, through the cork, and into the jar. And when it hits the different resistance of the tinfoil, it will make them flutter. I made
Interesting.
those and would like work on, like, I would get to the point that I could not even have to touch it. And I would be able to discharge enough to cause it to flutter. If I touched it, I could definitely make it flutter most of the time. Um,
That's really cool. If you can get it on video, that would be super
I need
super
to.
awesome. Try
I
to.
got one because my kid got a hold of it and treated the coil like a sculpture. So I gotta get new
Of
one.
course. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's really cool. I was actually looking into the copper swirl sticks for my garden, seeing as it's just unhappy. My garden is literally a paranormal experience on its own right now. But um, that's interesting. So out of all of the things that you've essentially interfered with, what was your biggest interference?
oh geez. I would like to think one time I spazzed out the apple grater at a job that I worked at. Is I had a job I worked at an apple orchard and we sorted apples all day and it was like this like 50-foot long machine with conveyor belts and everything crazy. And I was having a really, really bad day one day. And I kind of just thought to myself, I'm standing there waiting for these freaking apples to come down the chute. And I'm like, I just want this thing to die. And like, we ended up getting like an hour break because it just decided to like jam up and stuff like that. It was kind of interesting. So I didn't really necessarily kill it, but I feel like that was me.
I wasn't expecting an apple orchard store. That's interesting. I like, how big is this machine? Like a farm machine, like a big tractor like thing?
Yeah, it's a stationary machine. It was inside its own building, but it was probably 50 feet long, 10, 15 feet tall at the top of the
Okay,
bottom.
yeah. So I'm envisioning the right thing here. I was like, I just thinking apple orchid and just like this gigantic machine. Yeah, you probably, I
Yeah,
think
it's
you
basically
win the interference game. MRI might be more expensive, but that's definitely bigger.
bigger. But your MRI, it was permanent, whereas mine was just like a weird malfunction that it might not have been me, but it was just one of those days I really felt like it was.
I was thinking before we started, I was like, we're going to talk about these crazy experiences that could have been from like being an electrical interference, and I'm like, everybody loves the MRI story. But I actually, now I'm going to say I'm only 50-50 on this. I don't know if it was actually me because I was driving on the highway. There were other people there.
Mm-hmm.
But so old school, I probably was like 19 years old. It was in, Massachusetts again, Route 1, not too far away from the exit that I had that accident off of. Now follow me because that might be relevant. I know, ooh,
Maybe.
phenomena, but whatever. So it was going towards Boston, Route 1 South, and they were blasting. They had dynamite. They were like doing, so there was a sign, it said shut off your transmitters. Because we used to have the CD players and the transmitter, right? Remember, did
Yeah.
you do that in your car? Or am I just
No.
old? Okay.
Um,
So in
well,
order to play music on a CD, I had to have my CD player and this little transmitter to transmit the radio to the CD to play the CDs in my car.
okay.
Yeah, I'm old. Anyways, so because they were blasting, there's a big sign that says to shut off all transmitters. So I shut it off. And as soon as I shut it off, all I saw was flares through my peripherals. And I'm like, what the fuck just happened? Like, I'm like, did I just set off the dynamite? It literally happened as soon as I shut off my transmitter. And I shut it off when they said to shut it off. I didn't delay. Like, I shut it off at the sign. So they
Wow.
didn't blast. Yeah. It just like dudded out. But there was flares both sides of my peripheral. And that's where they were like underneath like that area doing
Wow.
whatever construction work they were doing. That was the scariest. That scared the shit out of me. I was afraid to drive back home because I didn't know if I was gonna set off dynamite again.
Right. I'd be a little nervous too. That's cool. You should totally take credit for that regardless.
I feel like I have for most of my life. I'm just like, nah, I think, but still, it's just pretty fucking crazy. And that was around the time where I made the connection. It was about 15. I was 15, 16 years old. And I realized that I have a problem with electricity. It was actually, I grew up in foster care and I was living in this group home. And I was sent downstairs to vacuum as a chore. And there's nobody down there. Like, nobody even used the room. Shouldn't even try to vacuum in the first place. Like, it didn't even need to be vacuumed, but whatever. You get chores, you got to do them. So I went to plug in the vacuum and I woke up with a bunch of staff members over me, like shaking me, calling my name.
Oh.
So I clearly got electrocuted.
Yeah.
And I was on the other side of the room. I was about maybe 10, 15 feet away from the outlet that I was plugging the vacuum in.
Jeez.
And after that, I was like, okay, my hands weren't wet. I wasn't wet, or anything like that. Other people have plugged that vacuum in because it's like everybody gets a rotating chore. So other people have done that. Nobody else was ever electrocuted there. Yeah, it was crazy. And it was like after that, I was like 16 and then like 17, I started correlating like I'm affecting this stuff. Like there's something about me that is causing these like reactions. And then forget about it. 18, 19, 20, when I started working on automotive, forget it. The techs would literally fuck with me and be like, come here, come plug this in. Like, no, because they would know. I would be like, yeah, car batteries, jumping cars, no. And I tried it. It was a Cadillac, a DTS. You need
You'd
to
have
put
to, yeah.
you need to put one stick on the battery and the other one to the frame to jump it. As soon as I touched the frame, I had freaking a streak of sparks fly across to the other
Yee.
line of cars next to my head. Yeah, that was like, and that was it. That was the last time I tried to touch a car battery. So I was very much an electric, high voltage, syndromatic person when I was younger. Like, it was without a doubt. The government would have had a field day. And if you're listening and you work for the government, don't bother. I don't got it anymore. I'm not here for you. But I'm telling you, like, it's been crazy. And I wonder if that's just the energy, the energy that I just like kept. You know what I'm saying? Like that was just.
It's possible you've learned a better way to dispel it now instead of just holding it all in. And yeah, it just kind of explodes out of you like that.
Yeah.
You just need to charge up. You just need to charge up.
No. No. Can you imagine? And ever pick me up in a Tesla? Don't even bother. I don't even like going near the charging stations. I'm like, just stay away from me.
Yeah,
No, I'm good.
around here, and I haven't bothered to like check one out yet or anything. I have no reason to. So
Yeah. I think about other things too. What happened to me in 2018 or whatever, but there were other things going on in 2018 and 19 and obviously 2020 that are
yeah,
pretty relevant to our just universe, everything. Like,
yeah.
like taking all that into consideration, I guess at this point, if anybody's listened this far, we didn't bore you to death because we're just like geeking out over here about sliding. Um, I wonder if other people's abilities to affect their electronics have lessened in the last 5 years as well. Because I might just coincidentally had my experience, and I'm obviously going to consider that in being a reason why mine have kind of slowed down, and don't affect me as much. But really, like, this whole planet has gone through so many changes um, in this time frame too, and I'm wonder, maybe that could have something to do with it.
It's possible. So yeah, if anybody's listening, I'm not exactly sure how you should get a hold of us. There's a comment section on the website. I didn't look. Let us know if you've experienced any lessening in really anything, any sort of
Yeah,
like spirituality that you've had in the last few years, or
yeah,
maybe even stronger in a way, like the electric people, the sliders have figured out, and that energy movement has moved somewhere else, and all of a sudden there's like way stronger psychic abilities. They're using that energy somewhere else,
the other
that
thing
would be.
too, when we go into like the more paranormal aspect of it, I feel like, in my opinion, paranormal activity in its entirety has lessened over the last 5 years as well. With the exception of the pandemic and with the massive amount of losses that we have suffered, those are valid, and those experiences are definitely there, and they account for a huge amount of paranormal activity. But as somebody who's been into researching the paranormal a lot, like myself and Anna, I think that the categorization of paranormal activity in its entirety, with the longevity, residual energy, and the history, and just the depth, in my opinion, might have shifted in some sort of way. And I feel like even those people who had been recently passed on throughout COVID and the pandemic have also made their way to their next life,
like
business,
mass
job, realm
light.
sooner than the past like experiences. Does it make sense what I'm trying to say?
Yes. Yeah. Like I'm gonna say it was like with with everybody dying and everything that's going on, is perhaps there has been, a mass exodus of like, holy crap, there's the light. I'm following the rest of these people.
Maybe. And I notice there's a lot of people have. Let's just open that conversation up. What do you think happens when we die?
Oh my God, I haven't really decided that. I think we are energy, and our memories have to be attached to those in a way. And I think over time you start to lose those things, but I think when you die, yeah, you become a ghost of yourself, and you make that choice of if you're going to stay or are you going to go into the light.
Yeah. See, I agree with you on not knowing or deciding that yet. I think it depends on a lot of different circumstances on what exactly happened. But I also have been in a situation where technically I have been put in that situation where I was in between. And while in between, um, I essentially died. They got capture, and I was in a coma for 3 days. So I wasn't dead. I still had vitals, but I wasn't anywhere else. Like if somebody they woke me up, I could see, a couple of them wanted to ask what the hell was going on, because while I was out, I was responding to them, and I wasn't awake, but I was responding to them with like body language. I ripped the vent out myself. I actually woke myself up from the coma. They told me they had to unplug everything and just like let me do it because I kept pulling the vent out. So I wasn't
Wow.
really going anywhere. I didn't see any light. A lot of people in that situation, near death situations or in comas, they have a story. You know what I mean? And I respect everybody's, experiences. I didn't get that story. Like I didn't get that far, I guess. I don't know. It was nothing. It was just black. I don't remember trying to talk to them talking to me. I don't remember pulling out the vent. I just remember when I woke up and being pretty
That's what
pissed
my
off, So
is just black and dark. He doesn't remember any of it. And
yeah.
yeah, that's what happened to him. And like the thought kind of occurred to me is maybe the people that have stories about coming back is because they literally came back when they weren't supposed to. And like that wasn't your time,
Yeah.
you
Wow.
know?
It had me thinking a lot, I thought about that shortly after for quite some time, you know. And you're probably right. You're probably right. And it's
And honestly, I kind of just hope it's just like going to sleep and it is dark and you don't know anything.
it makes you think about what's like the time period, you know what I mean? Like that was like 48, 72 hours for me. Like what's the time period as to when your essential consciousness regains consciousness wherever you go? You know what I'm saying? Because we know, or you might know, but I understand as a medium that people will pass and will be able to communicate. there's energy, whether it's residual energy, where the person might have already planned their death and thought about how they wanted to connect or respond to their loved ones that are still alive,
Yeah.
or not.
Hmm.
Because there's a lot of times that somebody might have passed really quick, not expecting it, and they're immediately able to communicate. And that's where you get a lot of the stories or hearing about like somebody kind of freaking out, not realizing they've passed. You know what I mean? People,
Mhm.
firefighters, EMTs, on scene of people that passed, they have stories where, you know what I mean, they're getting immediate communication signs and signals. So, I don't know. It's really, I guess, circumstantial in my opinion. What do you think?
I kind of agree with you. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know it's so complex. Like you said, the ones that don't know they're dead, and the ones that are kind of stuck in their death loops, those are terrible.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a tough thing. It's one of the reasons that I made a point to study and learn about, paranormal phenomena to kind of help people dealing with that, whether it's here, or there, and help, clear energy and get answers and all that. So, what got you into paranormal in the first place? I should ask you that.
I could see them like as a kid. I just grew up believing them. My dad believed in them. I was, I knew the names of the people that lived and died in the house we lived in when I was like 3. Um, I could, I was an open kid, and I just kind of always grew up knowing they were there, believing in them. Um, in particular, we lived in a house. I think I was like maybe 4 or 5, and I remember being like floated down the basement stairs. It
Oh
was
no.
wild. I remember going down the basement stairs and the little turn at the bottom of the stairs, and the way like my feet, like my shoes slapped on the cement floor when they like put me down. Um, yeah, I've always just believed. I guess I grew up believing. My dad believed. Um, yeah.
Wow, that's a lot. I don't even want to ask you what is your most scariest paranormal experience or relevant, because that's scary enough. I've never had I don't like get touched. You know what I mean? It's very, very, very rare. It's very much a rarity for that to happen to me. So when I hear other people talk about that, that's just it's wild for me to it's a wild concept to grasp. That's scary as fuck. I'm surprised that kept you still interested and not just scared. That scares a
Yeah,
lot of
go.
people, like terrified.
Yeah, but I was young enough where it was just like, okay, this is normal. Um, and like as I got older, I knew it was a little bit different. And then, like, yeah, I've had some pretty like scary experiences, and part of it I think is because I don't have quite as good of control over my mediumship as I should. So stuff like really gets in when it gets in. Um,
Yeah,
and I think for the most part, I see animals a lot.
yeah.
Um, Yeah, I remember I was riding my bike one time, and it was near twilight, and it was just down this one back road. I was riding my bike in the middle of the road, and I just kind of happened to look down and literally like just saw the outline shape of this old basset hound just wandering in the road, stopped and looked at me. I remember
Aw.
that clearly. Um, when my dog died, her name was Minnie. She passed away a couple years ago. I was, I believe I was gifted being able to see the nature spirit that came to collect her and to see Minnie go with her. And there would be times where I knew Minnie came back to visit. Um, but I really feel that gift of her going with that spirit of nature was really important.
That's so sweet. That's really cool. That's a nice experience. It's a good memory. That actually makes me feel better. We can kind of wrap this up on a much better note than floating downstairs. Um,
Beautiful
yeah,
nature that will care for your animals and your loved ones. And they are,
absolutely.
and yeah, your dog won't be in pain anymore either. That's the
Yeah,
cool part.
yeah.
Um, Scary. That's a
I
whole other stuff we can talk about.
Yeah, I think our next episode we're gonna talk more about in-depth paranormal. We'll get ready for that. Um, but just to wrap it up, because we're coming up on 50 minutes and I have a 60-minute rule. If you've made it this far into our podcast, thank you so much for listening in. Anna's a good friend of mine, even though we haven't met yet. She has been one of my favorite pandemic paranormal BFFs that I could have ever made on the internet. And you got to check out her page. She's going to be revamping it soon. It's Hillsdale Paranormal on Facebook. And I thought it was a great idea that we both make posts about sliding on our pages. So if you're into it, I'm down. I'm going to make a post on my paranormal page, which is Dark Mirror Paranormal on Facebook. Let's set up a discussion about this. Have you experienced sliding? Do you consider yourself an electric person? Tell us about your experiences. We want to hear it. Let's make this an opportunity to collect more data and research, and let's get to the bottom of it, because you know we might not be able to answer everything, but I would love to hear from you guys and girls and anybody out there that's listening, um, what your experiences are, and if you've come to find out there are any relevant similarities to maybe just the things that we've discussed. And I'm like, oh yeah, we're gonna spend about 30 minutes talking about sliding. Forget it. I think we could talk about that for like the rest of the week if we wanted to. But
Oh,
let's let's open it up for comments, and we'll see what we can collect. We're on a mission.
that sounds exciting. We'll have to
Yeah.
start finding groups on Facebook and stuff too. That'll be great.
Yeah, I did find a good group. I forgot the name of it, but if you look up sliding, I'm sure you could slide right on in. Um, and I learned a lot from them. Again, the common comments were having an irregular heartbeat, cardiac irregularities or issues, um, and having a near-death experience. Like that's kind of, and again, I think it's a normal thing. I think we all have energy. It's just when the energy gets heightened, or our emotional states gets heightened, we are able to put off and get more energy, and it's going to affect these things. Whether it's the computer, the printer, the phone. I hate
Yeah, right.
printers. What was that? Sorry.
It's just an hour. We hit your hour rule, so we need to. Yeah.
We're done. We didn't break the internet or anything through this entire podcast, so congratulations to you.
Right. That's
And
awesome.
yeah, and thank you, Anna, so much for being on the show with me tonight. I can't wait for our next one, and I just hope you have a wonderful evening, and I hope it cools down for you out there in Michigan.
Thank you. Yeah, I had a blast. I can't wait to come back too. Thank you.
Thanks. And remember, guys, if you want to find Anna's page, it's Hillsdale Paranormal on Facebook or Meta. If you want to find my page, it's Dark Mirror Paranormal on Facebook or Meta. And we'll be posting in the next 24-48 a little poll or questionnaire about sliding. So jump on them and share your experiences. We'd love to hear them. And for all of our listeners, thank you so much for joining us tonight on this Wicked Wednesday. Stay spooky, and we'll haunt you later.